What's going on, everybody? It's Slashback Saturday. This is BroncoJuggalo. Today's topic is science slashers, and I am doing Silent Rage from 1982, directed by Michael Miller, starring Chuck Norris as Sheriff Dan Stevens, Tony Kalem as Alice. A small Texas town is terrorized by an invincible serial killer, and it is up to the toughest badass in the world to kick his ass. In fact, the tagline for this movie is, "Science created him, Chuck Norris must destroy him." Yeah, I love how, back in those days, especially with Chuck Norris, they could just build the whole movie around him being an actual badass, which was so cool. The director, Miller, said that this was never supposed to be a slasher. It just kind of came out that way. He wanted it to be he wanted it to be Frankenstein versus the Karate Guy. That's what he wanted. But what happened was it became a slasher movie. In this story we have a man who's pretty psychotic, trying to live a life. His medicine isn't working. His psychologist isn't working for him. And he goes off the deep end and he kills some people. He gets shot down by the cops, and he gets taken into a lab, and they bring him back to life. And not only do they bring him back to life, they make him invincible. But they can't make him any less crazy. Well, he goes around and he starts killing people again, trying to take out everybody and anything that he feels is a threat to him. And as I said, it's up to Chuck Norris to stop him. A lot of people don't know this, but there is actually a remake of Silent Rage. In 2009, they came out with a film called Indestructible. The exact same plot, the exact same storyline, and it is a remake of this movie. It is a lower budget remake, however. I'm going to start with cons, and I have a couple cons for this movie. One of the cons is the love scenes in this film. You could really tell that Chuck Norris did not do a lot of love scenes, and you can really tell he was uncomfortable. And honestly, he even said in an interview that he was very uncomfortable doing it, and he said going forward he wasn't going to do any more. I always thought it was kind of weird too, watching him in this, thinking, man, that's not how I want to see Chuck Norris. You don't want to see Chuck Norris as Mr. Sexy. You want to see Chuck Norris as kicking somebody's fucking ass. You know what I mean? And it was a little weird to watch that part. The second thing that I have a con with is I really feel that the dialogue is just very weak in this movie. It's very lacking. It's not terrible dialogue. It just seems like they really didn't put a lot of effort into writing it, and I think they could have done a much better job. But getting on with the pros, like I said, that sex scene, the love scenes may have been uncomfortable, but if you're into that kind of thing, there's a lot of TNA in this movie, which is cool. Most of it's just boob shots, you know how it is. There is a lot of really great action, and I really love the action in the movie. The action is top notch. Chuck Norris, as always, does a great job. One of my pros in this film is the bikers. There's a biker gang that Chuck Norris has to take out prior to the main event going on, kind of like the warm-up to show off his skill. And that's a lot of fun. The bikers are funny. I like it. It's enjoyable. I really like the mad scientist angle. You have three scientists. The one who is the head shrink, who's also the head shrink for the guy that was killed. And he totally does not want this to happen. He thinks they're idiots. He thinks they're doing it wrong, but he's not in charge and he can't stop them. And then when he tries to stop him, he gets shut down. And then something bad happens to him. Not going to go any farther than that. We have the one who's the willing lackey, but even after so long, even he's like, okay, we should stop this. And then you have the main head scientist, who is just out and out, oh, people die, that's the cost of progress kind of thing, and he's just fucked up. There are some decent kills in this movie, some very different, and there's a few kills that are pretty generic slasher stuff, getting hit with the axe. There's a really cool kill where he injects the dude with sulfuric acid, and I thought that was kind of cool. There's just some different kills in this movie. They're not all typical, but it is very much a horror film. This is a horror film. The killer displays the bodies out too. And, you know, it has all the horror tropes that, say, Friday the 13th has. It really does. It just so happens that in this, we don't have a final girl. We have a kick-ass action hero, you know, who's whooping some butt and taking names. The kills are pretty brutal, man. They really are brutal. And I really do enjoy them. I really enjoy them a lot. Overall, I think this is a really good film. My final pro is Chuck Norris. I'm sorry, but back in the 80s, early 90s, even the 70s, Chuck Norris was the epitome of badass. You know, he was a literal 5 or 6 times something world karate champ. You know, the only person that I heard of that could ever beat up Chuck Norris was Bruce Lee. And they actually had a fight on the movie they did together. I forget what the movie's called right now. But they, I'm not talking about in the movie. They fight in the movie. But they actually had like a match behind the scenes. And Bruce Lee won. And it was, from what I hear, pretty no holds barred. But still, that doesn't, I mean, that's Bruce Lee, man. You know, you're talking about number 1 and number 2, two of the baddest dudes on the planet. You know what I'm saying? I've always thought Chuck Norris was cool. He plays some roles that some people might say are kind of country or whatever, but he's a badass. He's a good action star. I've always liked him, and he does really well in this film. Aside from the aforementioned love scenes, like I said. Overall, though, this movie is a lot of fun. It's very enjoyable. And I want to really thank Jason, Horrific Nightmares Jam, for turning me on to this movie. Also for sending me my VHS copy. And now I also have it on Blu-ray from the retro line that the Mill Creek put out a couple years ago, which is awesome. Or last year, the year before, whatever. Overall, guys, if you have not seen Silent Rage, check it out. Check out all of the people doing Slashback Saturday, especially Joe, the horror man, who created the Slashback Challenge. This is BroncoJuggalo saying peace.
Motherfucker! The fuck was that? Ninja.